My name is Emily Hart. I am 32 years old, and until last year, I thought my life was finally coming together. I had paid off my car loan, got promoted at the marketing firm where I worked for 5 years, and started looking for a small place to buy. I was responsible, careful with money, and proud of the credit score I had built after years of struggling through college debt. Then, one afternoon, I got a call that changed everything. It was from my credit card company. The woman on the other end asked if I had authorized a large purchase at an electronics store in another city. I laughed at first and said, "No, I haven't even been there." She paused. "Well, Miss Hart, we've also noticed several other transactions over the last 2 weeks. Clothing stores, hotel bookings, and a car rental, all under your name." My heart started pounding. "What? When did this start?" She listed the dates. The purchases started 2 weeks ago, around the same time I had gotten a strange email from my bank asking me to verify a change of address. I ignored it, thinking it was spam. Now I wasn't so sure. That night, I logged into my banking account. My checking balance looked fine, but when I checked my credit report, my stomach dropped. There were 3 new credit cards I didn't recognize, all under my name, all maxed out. Then I saw something worse, a loan application for $25,000 pending approval. It felt like my life was falling apart in slow motion. I called the bank, the police, and the credit bureaus. Each of them gave me the same calm reply. "We'll open an investigation, Miss Hart. It can take up to 60 days. 60 days? Someone was living as me, spending my money and ruining my name, and I had to wait? I didn't sleep that night. I sat with my laptop, searching everything I could about identity theft. That's when I found something strange. A complaint on a financial forum written by someone calling themselves Anonymous Truth. It said, "There's a woman who has been committing fraud for months using other people's identities. She pretends to be the victim, but she's the thief. Her name is Emily Hart." I froze. Someone wasn't just stealing my identity, they were destroying my reputation before I even knew what was happening. The next week, things got worse. I started getting calls from debt collectors asking about unpaid bills for accounts I didn't open. My company's HR department got a letter saying I had falsified tax records. My boss called me into her office and asked if everything was okay. I said, "Someone's doing this to me. I swear I'm not lying." She looked sympathetic, but nervous. "Keep me updated, okay? HR will need proof once this is over." That was the first time I felt truly alone. After 2 weeks of panic, I decided to stop waiting for help. If no one else was going to save me, I would find the person myself. I went through every transaction in the reports. Most were from cities I had never visited. The thief was building a fake version of me somewhere else. I discovered that someone had even rented an apartment using my name. I called my cousin Ryan, who worked with cybersecurity. He started looking into online data connected to my name. A few hours later, he called me. "You won't like this," he said. "I think I found her." He sent me a picture. It was from a social media account under the name Amelia H. The face looked similar to mine. Same hair color, same build, even similar clothes. The woman's real name was Melissa Jennings. She was 34 and had 2 minor fraud arrests in the past. And she had my social security number. I didn't know how she got it. Maybe through a leak, maybe through something more personal. But when I saw she had filed a change of address form with my bank, I realized she had been planning this for months. The next few weeks were chaos. I filed reports, froze my credit, and called every bank I could. But nothing worked fast enough. Then I got a letter from the credit bureau. It was addressed to me, but sent to the fake address she created. It said that my complaint about mistaken identity had been denied. That meant she had already filed a complaint pretending to be me. Melissa wasn't just stealing my identity. She was creating a paper trail that made it look like I was the fraud. That night, I sat surrounded by papers, statements, and screenshots. I wanted to cry, but anger replaced the tears. If she wanted a game of paperwork and deception, I would beat her at it. I started writing a complaint to the credit bureau, not as myself, but as her. I copied her tone and format, but I added every proof I had gathered.
I attached timestamps, IP logs, and camera footage Ryan found. I built a case that showed the real fraudster was Melissa Jennings, and that her anonymous report accusing me was part of her plan. I wasn't just going to clear my name. I was going to turn her own tricks against her. 2 weeks later, a fraud investigator from the credit bureau named Daniel Myers called me. He said, "Ms. Hart, I've reviewed your case and the complaint from Anonymous Truth. There are inconsistencies that caught my attention." "Meaning what?" I asked. "Your evidence points to someone impersonating you and trying to mislead institutions. If verified, this could become a criminal identity fraud case." I finally exhaled. Daniel continued, "I'll need permission to coordinate with law enforcement. This could get big." "Do whatever it takes," I said. That night, for the first time in months, I smiled. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was taking back control. But Melissa wasn't finished yet. She had one more move that would test me more than anything before.
After the investigator called, I thought the nightmare was ending. I started going back to work, eating properly again, and even laughing a little with my coworkers. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could see light through the darkness. I didn't realize that Melissa was about to strike again, harder than before. One morning, I woke up to 15 missed calls. My landlord had called, my boss had called, and even a local police department had left a voicemail. My hands were shaking as I pressed play. The message said there was a warrant out under my name for financial fraud and check forgery. I froze. I couldn't even breathe. I called the number back and the officer confirmed it. My name, my birthday, and even my identification number were on the warrant. Melissa had gone one step further. She had committed crimes as me and reported them as if I was the one who did it. That morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't even recognize the woman staring back. I looked exhausted and empty. I whispered, "She's going to destroy me if I don't stop her." I called Ryan, my cousin. He came over immediately with his laptop. He started typing fast, pulling up everything related to my case. "She's escalating," he said quietly. "She's making this personal. What can I do? They think I'm the criminal." "Then make her come to you," he said, leaning back in his chair. I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She copies you, right? Everything you post, everything you do, she wants to be you. So give her something to copy." That night, we built a plan. I reactivated my old social media accounts and made them public again. I started posting pictures that looked normal, me at coffee shops with quotes about recovery and rebuilding. I even posted about a fake business I had supposedly started, a marketing consulting firm that had just landed a big contract worth $60,000. Ryan helped me make everything look real. Fake emails, fake invoices, even a fake company website. The goal was simple. Melissa would see it and think I was making money again. Then she'd try to steal that identity too. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. I started to think maybe she was done with me. Then, one morning, I got an alert that a new business credit card had been applied for under the name Emily Hart Consulting. I never applied for it. Melissa had taken the bait. Ryan tracked the application's digital signature. It matched her last known activity. The same area, the same internet address. "She fell for it," he said, smiling faintly. I nodded slowly. "Now let's end this." Over the next few days, I collected every piece of evidence, screenshots of her fake application, timestamps, and even the phone number she used. Then I called the bank and pretended to follow up on my own application. The customer service agent told me a woman claiming to be Emily Hart had already called that morning to verify her address. I asked, "Could you tell me the address she gave?" The agent read it out. It matched the apartment Ryan had found earlier. We had her. I called Daniel, the investigator, and told him everything. He listened carefully. When I finished, he said, "You realize if you were a cop, this would be entrapment." "I'm not a cop. I'm someone who's been destroyed by this woman for months." He sighed and said, "Fair point. Send me everything you've got." 3 days later, Daniel called again. His tone was sharper this time.
We got her. The evidence you gave matched her photo and the security footage from the stores. She's been using your name for multiple accounts. We're coordinating with the
Authorities for an arrest. My heart was beating fast. Are you serious? Completely. She even filed another complaint this morning, accusing you of stealing her identity. It's the perfect setup. That night, I sat in silence for a long time. I didn't even know how to feel. Relieved, angry, scared, all at once. A week later, I got a message from Daniel. It was short. It's happening today. Melissa had gone to a Bing to verify her new account using my stolen information. She thought she was finally going to get her money, but instead of a friendly banker, 2 detectives were waiting. She tried to run. They caught her in the parking lot. She screamed, "I'm Emily Hart. That woman is the fake." But they had everything. Fingerprints, photos, records. It was over. Even with her arrested, the damage took months to fix. I had to sit through long hearings, watching her from across the courtroom. She looked calm, almost proud, like she thought she could still twist the truth. But the evidence didn't lie. The fake documents, the emails, the matching transactions, they all pointed to her. When the judge read the verdict, finding her guilty of identity theft and fraud, I finally felt like I could breathe again. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I had survived. After the sentencing, Daniel called me back. His voice was serious. "There's something you should see." When I got to his office, he handed me a folder filled with printed emails from her computer. Most of them were sent to different people, pretending to be me, but one was never sent. It was saved as a draft. In that draft, she wrote, "If they ever catch me, I'll just say Emily framed me first. She's too emotional to be believed anyway." I stared at that line for a long time. Too emotional. That was what she had counted on, that I would break down, that no one would believe me because I was scared and angry. But now, her own words were going to expose her. I had her voice, her confession, her plan, everything. And I was going to use it to make sure she could never hurt anyone again.
The courthouse smelled like old coffee and cheap perfume. I had never liked courtrooms. They felt like machines built to grind people down, to take messy human stories and turn them into neat, cold records. Sitting there that morning, I realized how small I felt in a place that had the power to rewrite my life. My lawyer, Claire, sat beside me, calm and efficient as ever. She had that look she saved for important moments. Soft eyes, hands folded, a list of questions already prepared. Daniel sat a few rows behind us, the folder with the email drafts tucked under his arm. The prosecutor smiled politely at Melissa, who was in an orange jumpsuit and wore her usual expression, a mixture of practiced innocence and a nerve that I could sense under her calm. The judge called the case. Melissa's defense attorney opened with a speech about mistakes and misidentification, about how identity theft cases were messy, and how my cousin's trace analyses might be wrong. He talked about emotion, about how people under stress could make claims that were more fiction than fact. I felt Claire's fingers squeeze my hand. "Don't let him shove you into the box he wants," she mouthed. When the prosecution began, they laid out the timeline. Store surveillance showing Melissa using my name, IP logs tying new accounts to devices she had used, photographs of documents. It all sounded like a list of dry items until Daniel took the stand and the dry items turned into a story. He described how we had built the bait, how Melissa had responded, how her devices had left traces, tiny fingerprints on the digital world that linked to her. He testified about the draft email found on her laptop. He didn't read it aloud at first. He let the court know it existed, that she had written things that pointed to premeditation, to a plan. Then Claire asked if the draft could be entered into evidence. The defense objected, claiming chain of custody problems. The judge paused, then allowed it with a careful nod. The clerk printed a clean copy and passed it to the prosecutor. When the prosecutor read the line aloud, it landed like a punch. "If they ever catch me, I'll just say Emily framed me first. She's too emotional to be believed anyway."
The courtroom fell quiet. I felt every eye flick toward me, some with pity, some with doubt. I swallowed. The defense lawyer tried to turn it into something else. He said Melissa was writing fantasies. He said everyone commits little transgressions in private writing. He said I was reading too much into a single line. Claire stood. She looked calm but sharp. Fantasy doesn't explain the rest of the evidence, she said. We have application forms, timestamps, surveillance, and phone records. This isn't a fantasy. This is a plan. This is work. She called Ryan to the stand. He sat a little awkwardly under the bright lights, but when he spoke, his voice was steady. He explained the technical details in plain language. He showed how the IP addresses matched up, how the device fingerprints matched those used to file the fraudulent accounts. The defense tried to confuse him with technical jargon, but Ryan kept it simple, showing the court a pattern more than a single event. Then it was my turn. I hadn't planned on testifying. Claire had warned me about making myself look like an unstable witness, which is exactly the trap Melissa had hoped for.
The courthouse, the sun felt too bright. People moved around in hurried waves. Daniel walked me to my car and said, "You did something brave. You didn't let her make you the villain." I wanted to believe him, but the scars were deeper than the day's verdict. For months, strangers had thought less of me. For months, I had to explain my existence to bureaucrats. Recovery would take time. That night, back at my small apartment, I sat with the folder of evidence laid open on the kitchen table. Melissa's drafts, the application printouts, the bank statements, a map of how someone had tried to erase me. I thought about the words she had written about me being too emotional. I thought about how she had underestimated the very thing she weaponized. Emotion had not been my weakness. It had been my compass. It pushed me to act when the system told me to wait. It made me gather imperfect evidence and find allies willing to look. It made me keep notes and call people and set traps. Without it, I might have accepted the polite investigations and watched my life be rewritten. There was a small, private satisfaction in knowing her own words had undone her. She had tried to bury me in language and lies were what brought her down. That felt like closure of a sort. But this story did not end with a verdict. The battle for full restoration, for clearing every fraud mark and rebuilding trust, was only beginning. I had won an essential fight, but the war for my life's details continued. There were bank disputes to resolve, credit reports to correct, and a public record that would forever show the crime. I slept for the first time without alarms ringing me awake. The next morning, when I opened my inbox, there were messages from people I didn't know. Apologies, notes from strangers who had read about the case, and questions from journalists. I decided, for now, to keep my life private. I would fight quietly to repair my name on the paper trail, one institution at a time.
Control the story. Yes, but it's unlikely to change anything major. The court already made its decision. Still, the thought of Melissa trying to twist things again made my skin crawl. I didn't want to hear her name anymore. I wanted her erased from my daily life. That evening, as I was sorting through mail, I found another envelope from a credit company. My heart sank. I opened it slowly, expecting another bill I didn't owe. But this one was different. It was a confirmation letter. They had reviewed the court documents and officially removed the fraudulent account from my record. One small victory, but it felt huge. I placed the letter on the fridge with a magnet. For once, it felt like something was going right. Days passed. Then one afternoon, I received an email from someone with a subject line that made my chest tighten. I think she tried to scam me too. The email was from a woman named Jenna. She said she had been contacted months ago by someone claiming to run a women's finance mentorship program, the same fake business name Melissa had used. Jenna said she had paid a small registration fee before realizing something felt off. She found my name through a news article about the trial. I met her at a small cafe the next day. Jenna was around my age, with tired eyes and a guarded posture. "I almost didn't reach out," she said. I thought you'd be sick of hearing about her. I'm not, I said. Not if it helps stop what she started. Jenna slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a message history with the fake business email. The same wording, the same tone, the same phrases Melissa had used in her other scams. It was like seeing a ghost. She had this down to a system, Jenna said. She knew how to sound trustworthy. She knew how to play on people's emotions. She always did, I said quietly. We talked for over an hour. By the end, Jenna thanked me for fighting back. You made her pay for what she did, she said. You gave people like me a warning. After Jenna left, I sat there with my coffee, watching the steam fade. That was the first time I realized that maybe Daniel was right. Maybe telling my story could mean something. Maybe it could keep another Melissa from destroying someone else's life. That night, I began to write. Not like a diary, more like a record. I wrote everything from the beginning. The first strange credit alert, the disbelief, the fear, the nights of exhaustion. I wrote about the sting of being called a liar, the humiliation of being accused by...
When the podcast episode aired, I almost didn't listen to it. I was afraid it would sound like someone else's story. But curiosity won. Late that night, I sat alone in my living room, lights dimmed, the soft hum of my computer filling the quiet. The host introduced the episode. Today's story is about a woman whose identity was stolen by someone she trusted, and how she turned her attacker's own lies into justice. Then I heard my voice, calm, steady, recorded weeks earlier in a small studio, telling the story from the beginning. I had used a pseudonym, Emma, but everything else was real. The fear, the doubt, the small victories. The host didn't sensationalize anything. They just let the story breathe. When the episode ended, I sat in silence for a long time. It felt strange, like hearing an echo of a nightmare that finally had an ending. But more than that, it felt freeing. My story was out there now, not buried in police reports or legal files, not twisted into something ugly, just mine, as I remembered it. The next morning, I woke up to hundreds of messages. Strangers had written to me, victims of identity theft, people who'd been gaslighted or falsely accused, others who had lost everything to fraud. Their words were raw, emotional, and real. One message stood out. It said, "I was going to give up on my case, but after hearing you, I called the police again. I decided I'm not going to let her win." That line made me cry. Not because I wanted to be anyone's hero, but because I knew what it felt like to almost give up. Claire called me later that day. "You've started something," she said. "People are talking about identity theft in a new way now, not just as a financial issue, but as an emotional one. You've made people care." "I didn't mean to, I just wanted to survive." "Sometimes survival changes things for more people than you realize," she replied. Over the next few months, my life started to rebuild itself. Slowly, carefully, like patching a torn fabric. My credit report was finally corrected. The fraudulent marks were removed. My employer apologized for how they had handled things. They offered me my old job back. I didn't take it. I couldn't go back to the same desk where everyone had once whispered about me behind their hands. Instead, I started something new. With Daniel's help, I began consulting for people dealing with digital fraud, teaching them how to gather evidence, how to document everything, how to protect themselves. It wasn't glamorous work, but it felt right. Every time I helped someone catch a scammer or clear their name, it felt like another small victory against the kind of person Melissa had been. One morning, I received an unexpected letter from the state correctional facility. My stomach dropped when I saw her name, Melissa. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity, or maybe closure, made me open it. The handwriting was the same as before, neat and calculated. The letter was short. It said, "I heard the podcast. You made me sound like a monster. Maybe I am. But at least you got your story. You always wanted that." I read it twice, then set it down. There was no apology this time, no attempt to explain, just bitterness, like she couldn't stand the idea that the world finally saw her for what she was. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For once,
Silence was enough.
Outside, Daniel met me by the steps. "I heard you're thinking of writing a book," he said. "Maybe," I admitted. "Not about the crime, though. About recovery. About what it feels like to lose yourself and still find a way back." He smiled. "That sounds like something people need." "I think it's something I need," I said. That night, I opened a blank document on my laptop. The cursor blinked at the top of the page, waiting. I typed the first sentence. My name was stolen once, but what they couldn't take was the part that mattered, the truth of who I am. The words came easier than I expected. It wasn't just a story of fraud anymore. It was a story about reclaiming identity, not just legally, but emotionally. Weeks passed, and I kept writing. Sometimes it hurt, sometimes it healed, but every word was another step away from the shadow Melissa had cast over my life. Eventually, my story, the real one, began to find readers. People reached out, not because they pitied me, but because they understood. They had been lost in systems that didn't see them, betrayed by people who wore their names like masks. My story gave them something to hold on to, and for me, that was enough. One afternoon, as I sat at my desk finishing another chapter, my phone buzzed with an alert from the credit bureau. I froze, my heart racing out of old habit, but when I opened it, the message said, "Your credit profile is clear, all accounts verified." I smiled. It was official. I was, finally, myself again. I closed my laptop and stepped outside. The sky was bright, the kind of clean blue that feels like a fresh start. The world was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, my name felt like mine again. Unbroken, unborrowed, untouched. And that's how it ended. Not with revenge, not with punishment, but with peace. The quiet kind you earn after surviving something designed to destroy you. The woman who stole my identity had tried to rewrite my life, but in the end, she only gave me another story to tell.